Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Hey Vegeta, hey Vegeta, hey Vegeta, happy Frieza Day. It's the time we've been needing. Feel the planet explode while your loved ones are bleeding. It's that time of year. Frieza Day is here, and with the keyboard above, we send you our love, and everything's okay. Hey Vegeta, happy Frieza Day.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I'm Sid2. Joining me today is...
A geek for fun.
Indeed. And, you know, it took me a minute to realize, due to the way things rotate, not having a third person for the episodes is, like, super fucked over my ability to not be on topic discussions. So, and I actually did have a Christmas movie I wanted to talk about, so I'm just going to preempt the whole episode and say this. I'm not coming up with another goddamn Christmas topic discussion. Those are hard. I'm picking a movie at the end of this, and we're going to fucking watch it. Anyway, before we get into all that noise, Alfie, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about something that was never intended to be a Christmas special, but some very smart, very wonderful, talented people made them into Christmas specials that weirdly do feel like kind of a trilogy, and that is the Dragon Ball Z Abridged Christmas specials.
Yeah, you know, I didn't realize that until I was watching the last one just like maybe an hour ago. But yeah, shit, they're all connected, because by the time you get to the last one, you got like Lord Slug and Turles showing up. It's like, oh shit, they're the Christmas villains.
The villains from the last two movies. It's like it's planned, Jesus.
I know, it's so crazy. I have no idea how they managed that. It's hilarious. Yeah, so the DBZA stuff, we've talked a little bit about DBZA here on the channel before, but this is the first time Alfie and I have done an episode on it together, I think. Yeah.
I believe so, yes. Outside of just references, because we have no comedy talent of our own.
Yeah, and so my usual thing is to try to not just ruin jokes for people. Like, if they haven't seen the things and they're watching this first, I try not to just, this line is so funny, this line is so funny. So we'll try our best to just save, like, one favorite gag from each movie till the end to talk about. But yeah, these are a really interesting and ambitious-ass thing to do, particularly for DBZA, because from what I've heard them talk about, the movies are actually one of the things they have a harder time with, as far as just coming up with content. And I guess that makes sense when you kind of look back on the movies and they are just mostly fighting. Funny enough, if they wanted to, or if anyone wanted to, you could probably like cut a lot of the fighting back into these movies and just like make the plot DBZA, but just cut the rest of the movie's fight time back into them.
Just to make it like how they cut it to avoid getting flagged for copywriting because they have full fights there. Put that in, and now you have the definitive cut of these films.
I know, right? Because like so many of the DBZ movies are just formulaic as fuck. The villain shows up, they take out everybody, they take out Goku comes back, makes a spirit bomb and kills him, the end. Or or a bunch of the characters come together and do one massive blast as a group, the end. Like, that is so many of the Dragon Ball movies. It's ridiculous. So I totally understand why Team 4 Star seems to... They really do spread those out, and oddly enough, the movies are some of my more favorite things they've done, because that's where they end up getting to be the most creative, and I think the Christmas specials are a really good example of that.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those examples where because there is so little plot, and Dragon Ball kind of gets unfairly criticized, I feel, for being like the meathead show. It's like, oh, it's just fighting and there's no plot. But you'll find, especially as DBZ continued and they kind of decided to take a more, okay, well, the serious sections, we feel like we can do them justice because we're passionate about the material. So we're going to leave those in and maybe even add more narrative to certain things. You can tell that they are clearly passionate about the storytelling, and especially with, like, say, the Salak as the biggest example, really want to make it the best possible version they can while still keeping it comedic. Whereas with the movies, especially if you listen to like Kaiser or Moscow's like takes on the movies, you can tell as well they're clearly aware that they don't have nearly the same reverence for the movies from like a narrative writing standpoint. So I do feel like it is, when you're unshackled by that, when you're working with something that you aren't as, well, I don't want to ruin this moment, I don't want to change this too much, or, oh, well, maybe this could be funny because everyone knows about this moment. You do get to be freed and express yourself a little bit more as a creator in that sense. Specifically, say, like the Tree of Might, that storyline plot is really, really basic, but at the same time, it's so basic and so simple, you can change the dialogue, you can make it to whatever you want. Whereas the Frieza saga, you can change the dialogue and you can change bits, but it's still going to be about them getting the Dragon Balls and all of that. Like, there's only so much you can change with the actual main Dragon Ball storylines. Well, the movies, because, like you mentioned earlier, it's mostly fighting, you throw in a couple scene changes, you throw a couple things around here and there, and you can make them completely different motivations for the villains, and it plays. It's not like, that's a funny joke. It's like Talis planting the Christmas tree fucking works, because it does snow at the end.
Yeah, I think the Tree of Might one is probably the most they had to stretch it, oddly enough. Which, like, Plan to Eradicate Christmas should be the one that they stretch it the most. But, like, everything, I feel like that's the one that's, like, the least known of the three. So it's easier to get away with just making shit up completely and not playing with anything. From the movie itself. Whereas, like, Tree of Might, you know, you still need, like, okay, they're growing the tree on the planet and stuff. You still need some of that detail. Whereas, you know, so it's just, like, that's the one where I'm, like, when I first watched it, I remember thinking, oh, really? They're going with the Christmas Tree of Might? But then you get into it, and it's like, God damn, that's funny. It's such a good idea. But by the time you get to Plan to Eradicate Christmas, I mean, these are so far between as far as their stages of growing. You know, I was just looking up. Slug is the one in the middle, and that's from 2011. Tree of Might's probably, like, I want to say 2009 or 2010. I've got to try to figure that out real quick. But, like, that's, you know, they just grow so much as talents by the time you get to Plan to Eradicate Christmas that it's, like, it's almost night and day, the stuff they're able to do. They end up, you know, putting in custom animation and bits and stuff, which they obviously couldn't have done back when they were doing Tree of Might. So, I don't know, maybe they could have made it work more if they were to touch it now, but I think that's the biggest stretch, but it's still so much fun to watch.
I feel like maybe, like, just kind of breaking them down each one by one, because I think that can be fun to do. For, like, Tree of Might specifically, I've always been interested as, especially because if anyone looks at my YouTube avatar, I like evil Gokus because I like Goku and I also like evil people. So Talis, you think, should be, as the originator of all of that, should be really high on my list of, like, oh, cool movie villains. But he kind of sucks. There's kind of nothing to him, at least as is. Like, apart from having a really cool visual design of this is what Goku would be as a Saiyan, down to even having, like, Goku's eye shape, which even Goku Black doesn't have. There's not a lot to him, sadly, despite, like, being, like, the reverse of Goku. Whereas you get into this, and they actually do kind of make a anti-version by having a Goku who is completely the ultimate cinnamon bun of Christmas versus the Grinch. Yeah,
totally. Turles is one of those things where, like, it's just, he's such a character. It's one of those things where like he really needed some lore behind him because it just feels like such a cheap ass move in an otherwise really visually good movie. Like, you know, Tree of Might looks great. I think Tree of Might's animation is fantastic. That sequence where like the roots are growing is absolutely, you know, jaw dropping. And Goku fighting the minions is like really iconic, great fluid animation that was used for years and you know, the Rock the Dragon music video thing. It's really, really pretty movie. But Turles always stood out to me because his backstory, his looking exactly like Goku, there really should be something there between those two characters. Either he's a clone or he's really his brother, his other brother or something, you know, because the movies were like, here's kind of what's going on in the main line, but not really. It should be something like that, and it's just not. It feels like they just didn't know how to design another Saiyan. Like, they could have at least just gone with Raditz's design if they were gonna do that. I mean, shit. It would give the Raditz fan base something. But yeah, Turles always felt like such a just generic character, and so to make him like this, you know, God, it's so funny to see him doing the whole rhyming evil Grinch thing. It's great. It's a way to give character to a character that isn't a character.
Mm-hmm. It gives him something more to distinguish him from other villains. It gives him an in. It lets you know what his goals are, lets you know his personality outside of just domination. What I do appreciate, that I think is a strength of the original movie, because I do think it's important as well to judge these as pieces, and a lot of things that aren't changed simply because there's no way they can, I still think work strongly in the narrative they constructed. The fact that Turles cheats to get strong, and is implied to have that's how he's come all this way despite also being a low class, I think is a really good remnant, I think, of the idea of him being the anti-Goku. Is first of all, he does it by eating, which is also such a Goku thing, but second of all, it's such a, rather than landing on a planet and being raised by it and learning from it, and that's what lets Goku have the advantage over the other Saiyans, he is taken the Saiyan idea of kill a planet, take it over, sell it off, and turn that into its next extreme, even further than Frieza would go, of literally sucking it dry for your own power, which is a really good inversion of Goku. It's a shame that that's all there really is to it, but just thematically, that really plays, and it makes him a strong villain that kind of has his own Kaioken boost, but is dependent on a tree to do it. So you get that scene of he's fleeing, he eats it, there's this amazingly animated transformation. It's not even transformation, but like his muscles just expand and then re-shrink, and it's just, the impact of it is just crazy. They do it here for a nice comedic beat, but it's also intimidating when Turles just beats his ass. So I really like all of that they kept. But just adding into this of making him drain the joy from the world also works as not only a Dragon Ball movie villain plot, but as like a Christmas special villain.
Yeah, totally. It's such a great idea to have Turles be this just. Yeah, I think you hit nail on the head. This Grinch of a character. It makes the character so much more interesting than he is in his movie, and I think that's just a cool way to go with things. What do you think about the way the minions are written?
I mean, I feel that I'm curious. I'd love to speak to any of the people behind this, because I'm very curious if these are jokes TFS would make now.
That's kind of what I was getting at. You know, I was sitting back there watching through it, and the Lord Slug and this both have like a rape joke in them, and I was like, man, that's, you know, you look at it came out in early 2010s, and that's when like that. Oh no, you can make those are funny, and you know, full on, I made those. I was, edgy, early 2010s, young 20-something. I made jokes like that. And it's just, I think it's really interesting because I did listen to the podcast that Kaiser and Lanny did recently, and one of the questions they got was, hey, if you could give your past self advice on something, what would it be when you were like just starting DBZA? And Kaiser mentioned something which was to the effect of, I'd tell myself not to make certain jokes. And I think that's kind of what he was getting at, is those, because I mean, it's also it's not like it's all over the place, but it is a little. I'm remembering them more as I started to catch on and think about that, because Zarbon has that line when he transforms in the Frieza saga and goes after Vegeta. I believe the line is, "I'm gonna rape ya, bitch," and it's one of those things where it's. If it was just that in isolation or something, I probably wouldn't really blink twice at it. But you see that, like, that and this and Slug, and it's like, it really does feel like that kind of thing that was just, it was considered okay at the time, or was on its way out at the time or something,
And I feel that's one of the interesting, you're looking at it from a productive standpoint, is just seeing how, not just TFS, but really like the history of abridging changed to, you start off with Christmas Tree of Might when like TFS is still like in the prime of their growing, in the prime of like, okay, we're not just copying Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged anymore, or not even copying, but just like following in his footsteps. We're not just a band of people who've done separate different abridged series trying to make Dragon Ball work. We're getting a structure and we're getting a flow, but we've still got those trappings of these early kind of internet humor. Like, we're still appealing to that specific audience, which again, for the time, I wouldn't want to go back and change any of these, because I feel like it's an important thing to see what that kind of time was like, and to see how they've evolved since, because you go from Slug to Plan to Eradicate Christmas. TFS is like the last standing abridged show, really. Like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged still goes like once a year because Little Krubos are really, really busy. But I can't, and you get the occasional ones when there's like a new big anime, but it's by no means as big as it once was. And TFS has kind of evolved past that, it's one of the bigger abridges, to, this is its own show. TFS is its own brand now. People are copying TFS's jokes. People are trying to mimic them, to where there's a certain level of polish and everything flows really nice, that you can really tell these, at this time, they are industry professionals, because they've been in games, they've been hired, and now they're official dubbing company, which wasn't too long ago when they did the Christmas special. So it's really interesting from that standpoint, and I definitely think the writing got sharper. But at the same time, I never think it, even in the earliest, lowest produced, bad audio episodes, I still think the writing's really on point, and I've always got to give them that credit, because they are so talented with making very hard material work. Because at the same time, I think a lot of people, I know I had this misconception of, they write the jokes and then they fit it around what they want, right? But they have to work within the confines of what the animation can let them do. They have to work with how many lip flaps can actually give them certain lines. Sometimes you can have a really great joke, but there's just nowhere to put it because the animation does not allow for it.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see how, like, they edit in lip flaps and how that gets better and better as they go.
Yeah.
There's a couple rough, lip flap edits in Tree of Might that you can see and you can spot them. And then you get to Plan to Eradicate Saiyans, and there's, like, one that I know for a fact was an edit. Like, I can just tell by looking at it that was an edit. But then they, it's funny that this just came up, because they were talking about again, in that podcast, they were talking about why they didn't do BoJack. And they're like, we had enough trouble editing in lip flaps for Hichaki, or whatever the fuck the character's name is. I'm just going to call him Santa. We had enough trouble editing in lip flaps for him because he barely talked. We had to add lip flaps to him. And I was like, shit, you did? I couldn't tell. It's really, really impressive when they're able to pull stuff like that off, and they've also gotten better about just knowing where to time. That longer going line when you get like the pan over shot or something like that. The reaction image doesn't ever look rushed. It always looks really, really natural and really, really good.
And I think that's a testament to them being able to refine the craft over so many years of doing the thing, right? Like it's rare you get a group of comedians and storytellers who work with the same universe of material for so long, so consistently. Like, people kind of rag on TFS's release dates, but if you look at them all separated, they've got out such a wealth of content in a very short amount of time, comparatively.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, again, they're not getting paid for a DBZA. That's
They're
the thing.
actually almost getting anti-paid. Because they did it, they get denied job opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. It's really, really hard. I mean, if I were to be given the reins of Dragon Ball, like Toei Animation realized they made a mistake with the contract and somehow I ended up with it. I mean, the thing I'm doing is I'm hiring Team 4-Star to be an official parody dub. So they can just release it and not have to worry about the legal things and get the kind of recognition they deserve from it. Because it is just that good. And I think these movies show it. Like, it's not always been that good. There are, dips in quality. Not even dips. There is a gradient of quality. It's not as good as it is now when it was just starting out, but it's always been some of the smartest kind of jokes you could make with Dragon Ball, I feel. There's a lot going on there that I think's really good. All right, let's transition, unless you had anything else in particular you want to talk about with Tree of Might, and go into Lord Slug.
All right, I think this would be a fun one to do for each of them. What's your favorite of the minions?
Okay, I like the fact that Yamcha gets beaten up by like an evil Christmas toy robot. I thought that was a funny idea. And I like the crazy editing they do with him, with the freaking like music playing and stuff. It was fun. So I like the evil robot minion.
I'm with you there. Just in general, I think he actually has a really cool design. I would like to see more robotic villains in Dragon Ball that are like not androids, but are like legitimately sleek Terminator machines. So I appreciate him for that, and the gag's really funny.
Yeah, totally. All right, so Lord Slug. This one is both kind of a Christmas special and also kind of not, which I think
the
is
biggest cheat on the list.
Right? It's such an interesting way, and I just love the premise they do with Goku. He's just, he just wakes up, it's snowing, he thinks it's Christmas. That's absolutely adorable. I don't know what the fuck he does for like January and February every year. I don't know how he deals with that, but
I don't think he deals with it. I think Chi-Chi and Gohan deal with it. It's Christmas again. No, Dad. we had Christmas, but it's still snow. I know. I'm aware. That's why he couldn't last in the UK, because we don't get snow for Christmas anymore. So Goku should be freaking out that there's never been a Christmas. It feels like it's been forever.
Poor guy. Oh man. Yeah, I just, it is really funny. They did, I showed up in July, kind of thing. It's really funny idea to get that one in. I think Lord Slug is probably the best of these three original movies. It is still very formulaic, but I think I like that one more than either of the other two, just on its own.
Oh, interesting. Might is just rating them is probably my favorite, just because I really like a lot of the action scenes in that one. But this one, there's Lord Slug's fun, especially for that really cool moment at the end. Which I love how they reworked that for this. It makes it even cooler almost. But yeah, what's interesting to me about this is they could have very easily, well, I won't speak and say easily, but if they wanted to, they're so talented. I can't imagine they couldn't have made this Christmas. The fact that they went out of the way to just have it be Goku think it's Christmas is brilliant. Like, they could have, like, that gag alone almost carries the whole comedy because it makes it like a character arc, which is very rare. Is very rare for Goku to get in any of the movies, let alone the Z series. But the fact they actually did try and make it Goku learning about Christmas and trying to defend it, even when no one else believes it, like he's an underdog hero, when literally it's not Christmas. it's like a Christmas plot, right? It's like, oh well, and everyone's forgot about the spirit of Christmas, so I'm gonna keep it going, gonna get power by the end. But no, it's July. Like, I don't know, something about that just kills me every time.
I mean, I think the best gag about it is just the idea that the second he actually learns it's not Christmas is he loses it. And that's how they deal with the false Super Saiyan transformation. Because, I like Lord Slug the most out of these three. It's certainly not my favorite of the original Dragon Ball movies. But, like, that has always been that thing of it's called Lord Slug in the States. Overseas, or over in Japan, it's Yo Son Goku becomes a Super Saiyan or some shit like that.
It's Super Saiyan.
Okay. Yeah, and it's just like, it's such a just wind out of your sails, kill the momentum of what Toriyama was building at the time. It's the more I find out about this movie's initial release and stuff, the more I'm like, that's dumb. Because like,
week before the manga chapter dropped, a week.
The one
that is
that
just okay.
The point, I think it was totally not Mark made this point. I think it's kind of interesting. Is the OG Dragon Ball movies have more in common with Dragon Ball superheroes than they do with things like the Broly movie. In that the original movies are more meant to be like this kind of thing to give you a sense of what's going on currently in the manga, like the general concept. And to give you kind of a boiled down action-packed version of that, in the hopes that it'll attract you and make you kind of go back and watch the thing. And when you have that concept, and then you look at Lord Slug was supposed to be the stand-in for the Namek arc, it's just like, the fuck? It makes no sense, because they're on Namek to protect the Namekians, and yet Lord Slug's an evil Namekian, and it's like, what? It's such a strange freaking idea, man. It really gets me.
And I don't, because like I'm very curious to see or to know what people would have thought about this. Just as like the original Japanese audience who had to like saw trailers for this and then went opening day, right? Like, how weird is it to be knee deep in an arc where you're like, we need to bring back all the heroes we lost against the Saiyans. This is the fight we need to have, and make sure like Piccolo and everyone is still okay because we're desperately in the bits of this. And then these fucking movies are like, oh yeah, here they are, they're okay. They're fine. Goku's got all his Kaioken powers still, even though this is looking like it's before the Saiyans, but then it's somehow also during, but then somehow during after. It's just like, I respect them never making the attempt to bullshit, because some other companies would have, right? Like Star Wars with the old EU really tried to pretend that everything made sense and that everything was canon, even when everything was contradicting each other, because it was tons of different writers. Dragon Ball, at least, has always been very upfront with the original movies, at least. It's like, yeah, these are just for fun. So I understand that, but at the same time, it is such a strange decision, especially when you're not only basically trying to get the vibe of what's happening currently, but a lot of the time, it's adapting what came before, especially with this, where they make it a big gag out of it, but it's just King Piccolo.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was a great gag to just, he doesn't like being called King Piccolo, but he just does all the stuff that Piccolo did. That's really funny. It's a really good way to just, it's one of those things where whenever I hear people like, oh yeah, Lord Slug, you mean King Piccolo the sequel? When I hear people say stuff like that, where it's just like a very kind of baked reply, I kind of just roll my eyes. I'm like, you didn't come up with that on your own. You saw like one video make the point, and you're just done with it, and you don't want to think about it. But that's not that's more just like an annoyance at people not wanting to think for themselves than it is at the point, because I really can't argue with that point. I think it's a really good, critique of this movie. To just it's just King Piccolo, so this is weird. Which is a shame, because I think Namekians are kind of slept on and could be much more interesting characters in Dragon Ball, not just for the fact that they can generate Dragon Balls. So Slug's got some interesting potential to come back as a villain. But as is, what this is, I'm like, it's fine. The movie itself is just okay. Their take on it is probably the strongest you could have done. No, I think this is... I think these are pretty standard ramp in quality, not just because they got better as they did this stuff. I think Lord Slug is better than Tree of Might, as far as just, the writing, the editing, everything like that they're doing. Because, like, Tree of Might has that moment where, oh yes, father against son with Gohan turning into the Zaru, and then they just do that quick cut of Goku cutting off his tail. It's like a kind of funny visual gag or whatever. But I don't know, Slug I think has some of the better writing and some of the better choices for visual editing. Particularly the scene that cracked me up the most. When I first discovered Team 4 Star, I watched, I think, everything just all in one day. And they were like at the Super Vegeta section of the Cell Saga at the time. So comedy can have this tendency to kind of build, and stuff that's not necessarily like tear-inducing funny on its own can become it if you're already just laughing at so many things, and you're just in that right headspace that like something really simple can actually have that effect on you. And that fucking bit with Piccolo and the guy going in and out of the building over and over again is such a simple joke, but it's so damn effective. And I remember watching that, laughing so hard that I was crying, and it like hurt me to breathe. I had to like pause the video and laugh for a minute or two and like come back to it. It's just that good. And it's not just the attitude, the headspace I was in at the first time I watched it, but it's like, it's just a really, really good bit. It's got this great visual timing to it. It's a really good instance of the visual editing that they've been able to take advantage of because of just how anime is made and all these composited layers. They do a really good job of just blending all three of those things together. It's such a great opportunity for a joke. You could have just... I'm sure it exists. I gotta see if I can find like a 10-minute loop of just that sequence. God, it'd just be so perfect.
I think maybe crowning achievement. I wouldn't say crowning, because I do think this is something Toriyama understands. But I think out of every other fan material, anything from analysis to fan fiction to fan manga to anything to have touched Dragon Ball, to even like the continuations of the series without Toriyama, Team 4 Star are the only group to get that Toriyama knew the strength of Dragon Ball as slapstick.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to have these ultra powerful characters and the way things move and the way things are impacted and how things can be exaggerated with goofy faces and incredible powers with incredible speed can be really cool and really badass. But Team 4 Star seems to be the only one who remembers it can also be really funny.
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason why Kid Goku is so beloved, because he was kind of the one who was championing, oh, turn the page and he just beats someone in one punch, and it's like an impact shot to you, and it's really funny because someone's just been sent a mile away from as a gag. Piccolo in this movie in particular, I feel like is the strongest they've ever written him. I think Piccolo is the star of this movie. Like, his scenes are golden here.
I mean, this is definitely the one where he gets the most to do. And I mean, you could probably say that, excluding a couple episodes of Dragon Ball and Z, you know, this is probably the time you're going to have the most chance to do much with Piccolo, you know?
It's the time where he really does get a solid win on nearly all the minions at once, as well as, like, with, again, they make it really cool visual gags as well, and obviously it's still got the Gohan conceit, but, you know, them formulas be hard to break, apparently. But I feel like that whole sequence in particular, with how strength the performance is, how strong the animation is, like, again, this film looked gorgeous, so even just as a piece on its own, it doesn't necessarily have to feel fan-made, because it's edited very, very smartly from people who know how timing works, and know how to leave a joke, and know how to do a joke fast, and they also know how to leave a joke long. So I feel like all of that scene kind of encapsulates why Team 4-Star isn't just, oh, they make the jokes, they make Piccolo's Gohan's real dad, like that kind of meme conception.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
When we wanted to do the episode on the Broly movie, I initially wanted Manos to join. Just stuff happened that he wasn't able to. But I asked him, just since he was able to watch the thing, just not able to record, I asked him what he thought on it. And one of the things he said to me was, I watched it, I thought it was okay. It was, Dragon Ball with cursing. I've seen some other Abridged stuff that basically does the same thing. Like, he's a big Steven Universe fan. He's like, I've seen Steven Universe Abridged, and it's just the characters cursing. It doesn't really do much for me. And I'm like, no, it's... I felt really bad because I thought that was a really good encapsulation of what TFS does so well. But I think you do kind of need to, like, strap in for the journey and really get just not only how well they write comedy, but how well they understand the series and characters. Like, I know they do, like, Hellsing and stuff, and I'm tempted to watch it, but I don't know Hellsing, so I feel like I'd just be seeing, like, a funny version of a thing I've never seen. I don't think I'd be able to get that full context that I feel they probably bring to it if they took the time to do it, you know?
I don't know, that's curious, because again, at the same time, you've always kind of championed that you can give TFS to someone as, like, a legitimate dub of Dragon Ball. So would you say that maybe, like, contradicts that, or is that like do you think it depends on the person, maybe?
I think obviously the person matters a bit. What I think it is with TFS is I do think you need to strap in for the whole journey. I don't think you can just... My experience there tells me you probably can't just watch the one. I do feel like you need to strap in for at least... I mean, the Saiyan Saga is only 10 episodes for them. I feel like that's not that much of a commitment, given that some of the episodes are 10 minutes long at the most, you know? I feel like if someone sits there and watches the whole Saiyan Saga, and then they still don't like it, I can't really do much for you. Obviously, the show gets better afterwards, like, quality-wise and everything, but if that doesn't do it for you, I don't think anything will. But at the same time, I'd probably say that just about Dragon Ball Z, you know? If the Saiyan Saga on its own doesn't do it for you, there's things that change, things are different as the series goes on after that, but, like, I don't think you're gonna be there for it. And hell, I'm definitely
start with Dragon Ball.
Yeah, but I'm definitely not going to recommend to start with Dragon Ball if even the Saiyan Saga can't do it for you. If you're like no, I need more action type. You're gonna have a hard time. So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with that. It's I don't know. That's a good question. It's something to scratch my head a little bit about. Cool.
Yeah, I guess one thing I do want to ask you about is because it is kind of, we mentioned it a little bit, I'm more curious because whenever we ever going to have a chance to talk about this, what do you think of false Super Saiyan as like a concept, the design, just everything about it? Because this is literally the only time we see it outside of a filler scene.
It'd be great if it were actually in the series. Like, are you gonna make fun of me? You're gonna make fun of me. I don't give a fuck. Make fun of me all you want.
But,
all right, here we go. It'd be great if it was Vegeta's form. Like, just, you could make an argument that's what he's got when he's facing against Final Form Frieza, but it's probably not.
I mean, he kind of looks like it.
Kind of, but it's a stretch. It's over too quickly to really make much of an argument, I'd say. Like, that's the thing is, I kind of like the idea that, oh, you unlock this, like, you get a taste of it. You get a preview of Super Saiyan. What is it supposed to be, like a 25 multiplier or something like that?
Yeah, it's literally half.
Yeah. Like, I like that idea of it, but it's just, it doesn't work because it's so retroactive. This isn't false Super Saiyan. This is what they thought was Super Saiyan because they couldn't wait a goddamn week. Like, that's the thing, is it's damn pussyfooting around. Oddly enough, I don't know how much consultation Toriyama got with these movies. I think it changed movie to movie. I'm actually somewhat impressed they managed to get as close as they did with Super Saiyan. Is kind of the most I might have to say about false Super Saiyan.
They got the hair part, they got the aura, they got the eyes changing some way. Like, all the details are right. It's just some bits here and there, which part of me almost thinks maybe Toriyama did give them to a design, and then as his want, he changed it.
Yeah, that's a good one to question on. I don't know. It's weird to look at that. False Super Saiyan. Again, I like the idea of it. It's kind of a cool idea for a form. Like, you just get a preview of it, and then you can't maintain it, and then you need the like okay, false Super Saiyan could work really well if it's just the combat drive of the Saiyan taking over, but it doesn't have that emotional drive to it, you know? I think that's a cool way you could make the form work, and it kind of works within the context of the movie, because Goku's mad at Slug. He is fighting him. He's trying to save his world. But that's like Goku's Saturday, right? Like, that's just his thing. So it's a really intense battle for Goku, but it doesn't have that same emotional side to it that the death of Krillin did to inspire the Super Saiyan transformation, you know?
You could almost say that false Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan both need like igniting a fire, but the difference is with Super Saiyan, they maintain it and they keep it and they don't let it all burn out at once. Whereas false Super Saiyan burns really hot, but it burns out really, really fast because there's no grounding there. There's no candle. It's just the fire.
Yeah, I think that might be a good way to phrase it. I kind of like the idea. It's like false Super Saiyan's just the Saiyan instinctual combat drive, kind of tapping into the powers of the Saiyan body. But in order to really get there, you need like the mental side of it from that emotional impact to make it really happen. At least for your first transformation with Super Saiyan. I don't know. It's an interesting idea. It's just not. It's all retroactive is the problem, right? Like, clearly, if they actually knew what Super Saiyan was going to look like, this wouldn't be a conversation. They wouldn't have created a form just for the movie called Super Saiyan Goku. Yeah, it's how funny is that? The movie that's actual title is Super Saiyan doesn't have a Super Saiyan.
Only in Dragon Ball, folks. Only in Dragon Ball.
Right. Alrighty.
Speaking of Super Saiyans, though.
Yeah, you want to transition?
To eradicate them. You have to pick up on these transitions, my friend. You have to pick them up on them. So yeah, this one is the final one and the most recent Christmas special, and given what they've said about how TFS's production is changing, this could be the last.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been interesting to hear them talk about that. They've seemed to be a little nervous about it, and so I'm curious how much they're gonna commit to it. Obviously, the Dragon short did really, really well for them, and I fucking loved it. So it should be interesting to see if they feel comfortable enough to move forward with just those, or if they are gonna do things to get the rest of the series together, or exactly how far they're going to go. It's an interesting time for Team 4-Star. They're making a lot of changes right now.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like if they do have to make this, well, this is the last. We'll probably do like Christmas shorts here and there, but this is the last dedicated special. I think it's a good one to go out on because it is kind of the culmination of the previous two and a lot of other long-running gags in TFS all into one kind of celebration of it almost, and turning what was very much a cheap tie-in video game special with Raging Blast 2 of an adaptation of another video game special from Plan to Eradicate the Saiyans got turned into Plan to Eradicate the Super Saiyans, and it's nearly a shot-for-shot remake just with the Kai/Super style versus the original 90s style. So it's very weird to look at. At the same time, it's got a very unique premise because I think it predates Baby. I think the video game predates Baby because it's still during that Cell Saga time period. People might have to correct me on that, but I think Dragon Ball Z was still going on and it hadn't quite got the GT yet. So this is really the first, technically, despite looking modern, this is the first Tuffle revenge plot we had, and goddamn, why is this one of the only ones, that and Baby, each time? One's obviously massively superior, but it's such a good idea.
Yeah, I don't know. Because Tuffles aren't canon, I guess, is what it comes down to.
Stop them. We've only got 3 movies. 4 movies.
We don't talk about Bio Broly. No, I mean, you're right. It's one of those things. Canon in Dragon Ball could be an entire topic for just a video because, I mean, what other major franchise could you say that of? Oh, that doesn't count. That's not canon. It's like a major fucking part of the franchise. It's in your episodes of your series. Yeah, but those episodes are filler. So like literally I can watch one episode and it's canon, and I can watch another episode it's not. Or by the time you get far enough into the thing, I can watch half of an episode and it's canon. I can watch half of an episode and it's not. It's fucking batshit.
Anime.
Yeah. No, so like the Tuffles are, I mean, it's one of those things where it's not canon, but has there literally been anything in canon to contradict it yet?
The only thing we know of is it's never been mentioned. But yeah, nothing's outright contradicted it, I feel like. The only thing that has is recently the Broly movies. Like, it used to be accepted that the Tuffles invented Scouters, but in a guide for the Broly movie, Toriyama said that it was that guy who questions why Frieza wants to raise his height.
Mm-hmm.
It's that guy who invented Scouters apparently now, which I think is, well, that's lame.
Whatever. I don't really care. I'm sorry, the origin of the Scouter I'm not super invested in, I guess.
Well, damn. Makes only one of you. I've actually written numerous what if Scouters were Dragon Ball things, and anyway. No,
I mean, I guess you could do that. It really changes.
I was joking, you asshole.
I mean, no, like seriously, the whole Frieza saga is completely fucked if Frieza and his minions can just sense energy. Gohan, Bulma, and Krillin land and are just instantly killed. The end. Vegeta can't get away with his bullshit. That whole saga. Frieza's immortal, takes over the whole universe. There you go. I'll just cut that. We'll just post it on your channel. What if Scouters didn't exist?
Well, there you have it, folks. The writing process of 2 geniuses.
Mm-hmm. No, but like that really doesn't matter to me. Like, is it even that they invented Scouters, or they just happened to be using them and we just assume that they invented them.
I think it's said somewhere that they invented them.
Okay, I don't know. It's not really that important anyway. I don't know, like the tuffles, it's one of those things where I think it really works. I think it makes a lot of sense, and it doesn't really have to be brought up. And it's not something Vegeta would necessarily talk about because, like, he's the only one with any knowledge of Saiyan history, and it's not like any of that even necessarily happened while he was alive, right? I don't know. Timelining the Saiyan races thing has been really weird from what I've come to understand. Apparently, the Saiyans went from, cave people to piloting spaceships and working for Frieza in like 30 years or some shit.
It's just don't think about it. Just
yeah.
Just enjoy the blasts and the fights.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly what we should do.
Yeah, I ain't gonna fuck with that side of things. What? Toriyama didn't make a timeline? I thought he'd be like all the other super prepared writers who, before he does anything, makes a timeline and a map.
Goodness me. Do you know who did have a plan?
Santa.
How do you feel about Dr. Lychee becoming Father Christmas?
I mean, again, it's one of those things. I saw this before I saw the original plan to eradicate the Saiyans. I did. To you? Yeah, this works better to me than like it's he shows up and you're watching his movie. It's like this fucking guy. It's like there's Santa. That's hilarious. And I mean, has Toriyama ever drawn Santa? I mean that kind of looks like what he'd do, minus the blue skin.
It's his. I mean. He did kind of help when we were designing Norse Odin for Dragon Ball, so yeah, I think it's pretty close. There's another time you would have thought we'd get. It's all connected, man. Geeky gentlemen, this month was planned out. Trust me. Don't even at me, okay? I planned this all out.
Yeah. No, I mean that's one of those things where I'm like, it's something I never saw because it was such like a you said it was a video game cinematic, basically, right?
Yeah, for like an old Famicom game. Not Famicom, that's way too early, but like it was an old Dragon Ball game, literally based off it was like you had multiple endings and Hachiyak had different forms depending on what end you did. So then no one watched that because it was Japan only. They had the footage and they were like, well, we're making another Dragon Ball game like in the 2000s. We're like, well, we've got that. Why don't we just almost trace over it and make it much shorter, condense all the cutscenes into just a 20-minute short you can unlock if you beat the final boss and put it out. And you know what, like, as much as cheap that is, I kind of do appreciate it because it's more Dragon Ball. This was like pre-Battle of Gods. So we were fucking starved for Dragon Ball content. So this was really cool because this was one of the only new, this and Yo Son Goku, one of the only new animated Dragon Ball stuff we were getting. So a lot of people were actually thinking this was going to herald in another GT thing because people thought, they're seeding the Tuffles. They're going to bring them back. That led nowhere. But I don't know. This is a very interesting bit of Dragon Ball history. So seeing TFS basically take it and take what was meant to be just a marketing bonus, like a fun, here's some Vegeta fighting, here's some Frieza fighting once again, and actually make it some character moments that you get to see Cooler and Frieza interact, which they could never do, but they actually get to pay off that he's a prick, which has been a long-running gag. They get to pay off Frieza Day. They get to pay off, you mean the tree guy? Like, all of these long-running bits actually do get some form of resolution. Well, the characters get to meet up for just a short time, but it actually feels like a more of a celebration for TFS than it ever did for the series.
I mean, right? Like, again, when we first started talking about this, the fact that you got Turles, Slug, and Frieza all there, it's just, it feels so much like this was all connected because they've been doing Frieza Day jokes for years. Does Frieza Day go all the... Frieza Day come out in just Tree of Might, or was it there in the Saiyan Saga too?
I think it's just Tree of Might.
Okay, so yeah, they seeded Frieza Day from the very beginning. of their Christmas special stuff. I mean, obviously Tree of Might's early in the career too. So you've got like Frieza Day there, and like there's been all these jokes about it. Of course, you got the other like semi Christmas special thing they did that we're not talking about. We might spend a minute or two on it at the end here. The Hey Vegeta thing. It's really like, it feels like they almost went out and animated this themselves to a degree. Because so much of it feels so reverent to their thing, more so than it does the actual run of Z and stuff. And I think so much of that's just, like, there's no way that they were, like, writing Tree of Might and thinking, oh yeah, well, you've got the whole plan to eradicate the Super Saiyans thing, and Turles is there, and then we'll turn Lord Slug into a Christmas movie as well, and then we can make that a Christmas movie. They didn't plan this that far in advance. You can't possibly convince me of that.
Especially because at that time, Plan to Eradicate the Super Saiyans was actually quite recent.
Okay, yeah.
that game Raging Blast 2 didn't come out a long time ago, and I think it actually was like, if Tree of Might came out like 2008, it would have been like 2007, 2006.
I looked at it earlier. Tree of Might's 2010. Slug is 2011. And then Plan to Eradicate Plan to Eradicate Christmas is 2017.
Raging Blast 2 came out 2010.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So there's literally no way they could have planned it.
Yeah, that's all just happenstance then. But it feels so perfect. It's so crazy how that all works. The other thing I want to make sure we talk about with Plan to Eradicate Christmas is this is where they've just gotten so damn sharp at writing. It's a joke every 10 seconds. And they're all so good. Like, right off the bat, you've got just like... what's the line? Sorry to just quote, but like, it's I just love the way they all sequence. Alright, I'll do it without quoting. You got Goku's Christmas pun. You've got Gohan congratulating him on it, and Goku saying, oh yeah, I've been waiting to use that. And then you got just, like, Vegeta shows up, and you get the whole minor character gag. It just keeps building. It's so fun. There's so many jokes. Like, what's really impressive about it to me is TFS, I feel, realizes that they can't put out content the way they did when they first started. Like, Moscow recently in a video said, like, oh yeah, when we were trying to do an episode a week, I can't even imagine that. But like, they know they can't put out content the way they did a number of years ago when you got, like, you know, episodes every other week or something like that, or every other month. So they've really stepped their game up to try to make the episodes they do release as special as possible. And I feel like this Plan to Eradicate Christmas is a really good example of that, because there's so many layers to so many of these jokes that it really does demand rewatches, which I think, especially with a Christmas special, is one of the best things you can do, you know?
Mm-hmm. It definitely shows that not only are they good at their craft now, but now that they've got such a wide fan base, they're very appreciative and dedicated to bringing out the best product they can, even if it does take a little longer. Be it hiring different artists, like I know they bring in Tabitha and Malik Tarinane, who we worked with for Dragon Ball Norse as well. So they bring in people to help do with like lip flaps and correct some faces for different expressions for jokes and stuff. And all of that takes more than just, like, it's not required. Like, they're TFS, they could put out anything and it would get 1 million views, because especially if it's Dragon Ball Z Abridged, because they've got that brand now. They're almost as big, if not just as big, as the main franchise. They are part of the reason why Dragon Ball had such a big renaissance, because it brought a lot of American fans back into that. Oh yeah, I remember when I watched this as a kid, and it got the momentum going. So when the new stuff came out, the fan base was already ready for new Dragon Ball content. So they are so integral to the brand that they really can coast it. Like, freaking Toei coasts it sometimes, that they make Dragon Ball. They're well within their rights to, and yet they never do. They always go well and beyond what they're expected of, and they always bring a really quality product. And I think as creators on YouTube, which is such a dangerous platform, which is so uncertain, and especially because they have been very open talking about them facing those very fears, about TFS being scared of Dragon Ball Z Bridge being the only thing that people want, and such and that, to see them still consistently bring that stuff out is really inspiring. Like, you don't get a lot of creators on YouTube who's been around since those early days, who are still around, and yet have only improved.
Like a lot of YouTubers that do this kind of thing, they kind of take a deal with whoever first really approaches them and gives them something worthwhile, and then they just stop making, and then that's the end of it. I'm happy for them, good for them. If you can get a job off of YouTube, that's great for you. But these guys, like, they went and they've formed their own studio from it. They've really kind of done the thing that I really, really respect and I'm really, really happy to see, which is they took the collaboration, the team thing, and really ran with it and made their own studio from it. This is, like, even if they never do anything else with Abridged, again, you still have the end of the Cell saga and stuff, and it is a proper finale. And it is like this big love letter. So many other fan projects that are long form like this, you never would have gotten that. You would have just gotten, and this is another episode of the series, and then after that, this person got a job, and so there's just harder for them to get time to record or write, and then this happened. That's just how a lot of fan projects end, whereas this has a lot of life to it, and it's really, really cool to be able to see that.
And I think just as a product, this one specifically benefits the most from a lot of the Christmas imagery. It has a lot to say about Christmas. We've talked a lot about different interpretations of Santa, from like Klaus to Odin to how he treats his elves. But this is the one time where he's literally a fallen villain, which is a really cool concept. Like, I'm not even gonna lie.
Well, I mean, like, when you... And I think it especially works with, like, the conceit of Dragon Ball, which is, like, Goku and company are not heroes. They're kind of selfish people who do heroic things for selfish reasons. To some extent. I think you can go a little too far with that. But that's definitely there. And so when you've got Santa having to deal with that, yeah, you would just look objectively at their actions as kind of fucked up. Especially Vegeta.
Vegeta, this is the only one Vegeta has a major role in, and I'm actually annoyed because he fits so well as a Christmas character. I love Vegeta at Christmas so much. He's golden every minute of this.
Yeah, the brief cameos he gets in the other two are just doesn't do it justice. I'm feeling nostalgic. Yeah, that shit's so good. It's really impressive. The way they characterize Santa here, of course, he's got a Dragon Ball transformation, which is a great way to do it. He's like, what is it? A Super Claus is what they called him, or no, Super Santa. God, that's a funny fucking name. And I mean, even the color scheme of it works with the red and the green.
Good. I like, again, they take a villain who, well, he's more interesting when he's in his normal form, like Lychee, and then when he turns into Hachiyak, he just kind of becomes a silly Broly knockoff. In fact, it's got one of the worst lines I've ever seen in a Dragon Ball thing, which is just so, this feels like a fan wrote it, is Goku takes a step back and is just like, wow, he might even be stronger than Broly, which is such a, like, when is this? Where is this? Why is Broly relevant, Goku? What are you doing? This is, of course, it's a video game plot. Why am I even asking? Of course Broly's mentioned. But, like, so that's there. But then they take that, and instead to have Goku, who for 2 films prior has been the champion of Christmas, has met and been friends with Santa Claus in the first film. So this is literally the betrayal that was set up, because you never actually get to see. Again, it works so fucking well. It's unreal. You never get to see what Santa Claus looks like. It's just like his silhouette. So you can like imagine that is this Santa Claus before his fall to darkness. And so like he comes back now with a vengeance, and Goku's forced to have the realization of the one enemy even more at home than his darker self that he had in the first film. Like, this is narrative gold.
It really is. I mean, it works so well that, like, of course, Santa is like a true hero kind of character, and so he would have to deal with these guys who are kind of dicks. And I think that really works. It's really funny to see how it interacts and how it all kind of comes together. It's just like with Toriyama in a way, where it's so obviously it could not have been planned, but it could not have possibly worked out any better for them. You know?
It's the best thing with Dragon Ball writing. Like, I know we're experiencing this sometimes as well. It's really weird that when you touch Dragon Ball, it has that specific energy to it, which is kind of magic.
I find that always fascinating, and just any creative thing when stuff just works out like that. Like a good example of it, non-Dragon Ball, is I was on Twitter and someone messaged Neil Gaiman and was like, so did Sam Keith mean to make Morpheus look so much like you? Just thought it was weird when he was designing the character. And Neil replied, is like, when Sam Keith first got my notes on what the characters were going to look like, he'd never even seen a picture of me. And so Morpheus looks like his creator, which is one of the most meta fucking things you could have possibly done, that it's almost impossible to believe it wasn't a choice.
That is insane.
Right?
Holy shit. I never knew that.
Yeah, it's crazy when you find out details like that. I love shit like that. It's so fun when things work out that way. That it's so perfect, and it's kind of that, you know, life imitates art kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know, it's a really good movie to see how they pull this all together. Is there anything else we want to talk about it in particular?
I mean, apart from just quotes, not so much. I
like Bulma in it. I really like
yes.
Bulma. She's got that moment that I think is just great, where she shows up and she's actually the one solving the problems. I think that's good.
That's even in the original. That's a really good moment, because they are legitimately about to die because they're like paralyzed by the gas, and then Bulma just shows up with the solution, which is, man, I can't imagine how great that must have been for her voice actor in both things, just to be like, yay, I'm helping.
right it's so good, so that's the last thing I had. Let's go ahead and go on to quotes. I'll do one, you do one, I'll do one, you do one. We'll go through each movie that way. So Tree of Might, this one I think is probably the least quotable, but the one that really freaking gets me is Goku singing Christmas songs really annoyingly and Chi-Chi going, "I'll deck you in the halls." That one, it's just so like, that's what Haley and I do all the fucking time. Just around the house is just, hey Haley, will you give me a Coke? I'll Coke you in a second. And it's just so stupid. So it's very good, like, marriage humor, I thought. I was really appreciative of that one.
That's a good one. My one's going to be a Goku one as well, because it's so true to the character, but it kills me. I can't do it. He's too strong. He's taking all the joy in the world. No, Goku. The joy is in your heart. It's just fucking so earnest. That's exactly what he'd do. Goku legitimately, wholeheartedly has a real emotional response to Christmas movies. Like, we get into so hard, Goku's got the mind of a child. Yeah, but what does that mean for, like, specific pieces of media where kids get that reaction? This is a grown beefcake man. Yeah, right. It's just fucking amazing.
I'm just imagining Goku watching like Dora the Explorer, where it's like, "Do you know where my backpack is? It's behind you."
And Gohan is like, he's watching it with Pan, and then her grandfather is just as invested, if not more than her.
Oh, that's so cute. Oh, that's a good comic right there. All right. So going on to Lord Slug. This one isn't actually related to any of the Christmas stuff in it. This is like perfect like Team 4-star moments that I just want to see if I can find like on its own. And that's when Gohan and Piccolo are laid on the ground, and Piccolo's like, "Gohan, you gonna do the thing? Gohan, you gonna do the thing where you get all mad and beat the crap out of him? Gohan, don't you fucking ignore me." It's just so like, it's just that, again, it's so perfectly just holding on a shot, clearly looping the animation. Oh my god, I love it so fucking much. It's calling out the formula. Everything about that line just cracks me the hell up. And just between Vegeta and Piccolo, there's so many good "I'm being ignored" me moments. I just need to find that "don't you fucking ignore me." And
So, from the heart.
I know. The performance is so good.
I don't think mine could. I think that is probably the best one in that film. But my next one is just, I don't know why. I think it's also just down to the performance, and like the shot itself works perfectly for it. But when the minions like, "Oh my god, are you Batman?" and then Piccolo just decks him. I don't know why. And then the music at the time is just simultaneously one of my most badass Piccolo entrances, but also so hilarious because his shadow legitimately does look like Batman.
Oh, I realized before we go on to the last quote, I realized we missed the thing you wanted to do, which was naming the favorite minion from each one.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah, so Lord Slug, it's obviously the dude with the fucking babies that come out of his back, and that's the one that like. That's where they introduced the gag of, "You're the dumb one, you're the pretty one, you're the one with the freaky powers." And God, that is such a... Again, those movies are so fucking formulaic that is such a goddamn good point to make. It's beautiful.
I'm very much in agreement there. That guy's got the best power scheme in terms of just and design as well. It's like a unique way to fight in Dragon Ball. So I'm with you there, and it's also like, so glad they picked up on that and made it, because that also helps for like other people who want to make things in the Dragon Ball universe. Yeah, there's your formula. It's not necessarily a bad one because you can make it, especially when you just need minions.
Yeah, I mean, fuck it. If someone's watching at this point, spoilers. That's what I did for one of the future What If things. Is I'm just like, all right, let's take the formula and work it, and it's so much fun. Like it's easy to write to formula. It's fun. It's just you can't get too caught up into it. So yeah, we got a future What If with some evil minions, and they are to the formula 110%. I'm so excited about it.
Very proud. For the last one, this is hard because this is actually getting to like the stars, but it's always gonna. Little Karibo as Frieza is almost. Like, I will say he's on par with Chris Aries as terms of just definitive Frieza voice. I fucking adore Frieza's performance here, especially like cool is like, "And we're going to destroy Christmas. Frieza Day, fuck."
Yeah, that's great. For me, I actually really like Turles in the final one. Just for that moment when he shows up and like he's clearly all chummy with everyone. And he's just like, "Prince Vegeta?" He just does the fucking double take. It's so good and genuine. It really works. And again, because it's the Christmas villains returning, I thought it was a really great moment. As far as my favorite joke in the final one, it's definitely one of the Vegeta ones. It's either between "I have an uncle," and Uncle, or it's Vegeta, no, Vegeta, yes. It's so quotable. I love it. They're both great, but I'll probably go with the Vegeta, no, Vegeta, yes, because it's just so damn memeable.
My favorite gag, because it had me specifically for my first reaction to it. The thing that had me on the floor when I first watched this was me, I could never endanger the universe. Next up on Dragon Ball Super. I just was not expecting it. And it just came up so perfectly. It looked so legitimate. I was just dead for like half an hour.
Yeah, it's just great, man. It's so good. Alrighty. Okay, if I were to rate each of these individually, they'd probably all just be 5s across the board. And we've already kind of talked about ranking them, that they clearly go up in quality. So I want to do a little bit of something weird with the ratings. And I want to rate these against each other. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so I want to I'll just use mine as an example. So, even though I think that they get better as they go, I think the way I'm going to rate them is, Plan to Eradicate the Saiyans is a 5, Lord Slug is a 3, and I think Tree of Might is probably a 2 in that regard. Not that they're all 5s just on their own individual quality, but in relation to each other, how they all stack up against each other. That's how I'd probably rate them.
Me, I'm going to keep Saiyans as a 5. I think that's pretty much inarguable. It's them at the top of their game. But I am going to bring up Slug and Tree of Might to an equal 3.
Okay.
Because I feel like at the same time there is a definite writing quality improvement in Slug. At least it's still relatively close, but the quality isn't as jarring as from the first 2 to the third one. But at the same time, I really do like so much of the first one, and I think it's the one that I just think turning the Tree of Might into the Christmas tree and making Talos' whole gimmick being around being the Christmas Dragon Ball villain is such a good addition to that character's lore, and really makes him. To me, that does for Talos what Master X did for Raditz, is takes a nothing character and actually gives him something. It gives Talos an in, it gives him a meme, where especially now with Goku Black, the one thing he had going for him was evil Goku has been taken away. So I think Tree of Might be the most important one of them from a Dragon Ball lore perspective. So I'm gonna boost that up so it's equal with Lord Slug. But yeah, I definitely agree with Saiyans being a 5 in a relative scale.
Okay, cool. Alright, so again, fuck coming up with a topic discussion for Christmas, because those are a bitch. So I'm going to go ahead and say the next thing we're going to be doing is another movie review. I want to review the new 3D animated Grinch movie, not the Jim Carrey one, the new one with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Okay.
I love the Grinch, and I've just not had the chance to watch it. It's on Netflix. I wanted an excuse, so there we go. Alrighty. So everyone, please join us for that one next week. Until then, I'm the Philosopher.
And I am the champion of the oppressed.
And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.
Ho, 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 ho! Merry Christmas!